Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Vince coming to you from under construction. I wanted to bring you guys another hot take today, okay? So LSU, they unveiled their new locker room about a week ago, week and a half ago. And if you haven't seen it, go hop on Twitter, type in LSU locker room and go check it out. It's pretty dope. It's a nice locker room. I can't even knock it. They got beds in the locker room. Why do you need a bed in the locker room is beyond me, because you should either be going to practice or coming from practice. But I never played college football. Maybe there's some things going on that I don't know anything about. So, but they got beds, or I want to say beds. They got recliner chairs. You know, you can fully lay out in the LSU locker room, each and every football player. So, you know, big ups to them. The kids love it. I love it. Enjoy it, okay? But what happened was, Eric Reed, who used to play for the for LSU when he was in college, he took to Twitter and he basically said something to the effect that when he played in LSU about 7 years ago, the locker rooms then were a lot better than the current locker rooms of the Carolina Panthers. And he mentioned Carolina because that's who he plays for. Now, he wasn't shading Carolina in any way. He basically was just saying, hey, there's a college team out there whose locker rooms are better than this NFL team. That's basically all he was saying. And there's probably a lot more college teams who have locker rooms that are better than some NFL teams. But he wasn't trying, at least I didn't take it that way. He wasn't trying to throw any shade at Carolina in any way. But obviously it ignited the conversation again on whether or not these kids should get paid or whether or not these kids should get more compensated than what they are already, if anything. And depending on what school you go to, I guess, but that's another conversation. So what I wanted to do, I kind of went back, did a little bit of research to try and figure out how did we even get to this point to where we consider these student athletes to be student athletes, okay? And essentially you have to go back to the 1950s. The guy in charge at the time, his name was Walter Byers. And actually, to go back a little further, there was a football player whose name was Ray Dennison, who actually died on the football field while playing football. So his wife at the time, well, his widow filed for workers' compensation with the NCAA. And Walter Byers created the term student athlete in defense of that, basically saying, these guys are amateur athletes and we cannot pay them legally, okay? Now, I'm going to take a break there and I'm going to keep going backwards to kind of let you know how we got to this point in the 1950s. Now, in regards to college or collegiate sports in general, we didn't get collegiate sports until the 1850s. And I believe the first two schools to play was Harvard and Yale. I can't remember the sport, but I think those were the two schools that were involved. We didn't get football and basketball until the 1890s. And once those two sports were introduced, they immediately took over as far as how the public received it in popularity and all that good stuff. But what started happening was a lot of people started dying on the football field. And unfortunately, there aren't any, there's no statistical data before 1931, but I found a few articles, and in 1905, between 13 and 20 players died on the football field in 1905 alone. And the reason why I say between 13 and 20 is because depending on which document you read, you'll get a different number. One document says 13, one document says, I believe, 16, and then there was another article that said 20 people died in 1905. Now, I told you earlier that the statistical data wasn't being kept until 1931. So from 1931 up until 1965, there were over 600 players. Now, this is all levels of football. So this is from high school up until the pros. But for essentially 30 plus years, there were 600 players who died directly from playing football. Okay, so I'm going to say that again to let you guys kind of marinate on that. From 1931 to 1965, there were over 600 players in this country that died from football, okay? So, once again, going back to the early 1900s, I think it was one of the Roosevelts. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, who basically he said, okay, we got to fix this because football was so violent. College football was actually at risk of being eliminated. But Roosevelt was so much of a fan, he was like, nah, we got to figure something out. We got to figure something out. So he basically charged college to come up with some sort of governing body. And that's how we ended up getting the NCAA. And the NCAA was established in, I want to say 1910. And it was actually here a few years before that, but it didn't become the NCAA until 1910. And up until the 1950s, all the NCAA really did was create the rules for the game. Okay? Now, during that time, we still had a lot of people being killed on the football field, but I'll save that for another hot take, okay? But again, up until the 1950s is when the NCAA, all they did was pretty much just say, hey, these are the rules of the game. But what happened was, as time evolved, more and more schools started creating affiliations with themselves, and they started creating championship games. Some schools started creating deals with TV and started making a little bit of money. And that's when the NCAA essentially became what we call protect the shield. They went more so from, we're just going to tell you guys how to play, to like, oh, snap, we can make some money. So let's start doing this. And they did everything they can to start protecting their best interest, okay? So that goes back to the Ray Dennison incident, okay? When the widow filed for compensation, the NCAA basically responded, and I'm going to read a few questions off. The NCAA basically responded by saying, did his football scholarship make the fatal decision of a work-related accident? Was he a school employee, like his peers who worked part-time as teacher assistants or bookstore cashiers? Or was he a fluke victim of an extracurricular pursuit? Those type of dismissive questions, so to speak, actually led to the NCAA winning their case against the family of Ray Dennison. To take it a step further, in 1974, there was another player by the name of Kent Waldrop. He was a running back for TCU. And essentially they called sweep right. And he went sweep right, and they got tackled. And the next time he woke up, he was in the hospital, paralyzed from the neck down. Now, big ups to TCU because they actually provided financial support for him through the 1990s. But at some point, they basically say, no, we're going to stop this. And then he took them to court. And they go to court for what seems like 10 years. And basically in about June of 2000, the NCAA won another case and said, no, you don't have a case here. And they basically asked if he was filing income taxes, if his environment met work conditions, and all those types of questions. Okay, and so in response to all of that, the NCAA responded basically by saying student athletes are not employees within any definition of the National Labor Relations Act, and that there is no existing employment relationship between the NCAA. To sum this up, if you ask anybody whether or not students should get paid, should they be compensated more, from the opposition, they will tell you no because they're getting a free ride. They will tell you no because they're getting a free education. And I'm not so sure about the free education comment because I know a lot of people with degrees who don't have jobs right now. I know a lot of people with degrees who are working dead-end jobs. And I know a lot of people with degrees who are working jobs that are not in the field of the degree that they have. So while the narrative is they should not be paid, they should not be compensated anymore because they're already getting a free ride, is that really the reason why? Or is it something else? I don't know. But I appreciate you guys for watching. Feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you guys next time, all right?